I hope all of you are doing well. Um, yeah, that's all I hope right now. It's great. It's nice to be here, and today we're going to go into a couple concepts that I've been just percolating as of late, and as usual, just explore meditation in relation to that. I guess a couple key elements that we'll explore. So I feel at least, and if there's any other questions or comments, I mean, even before we get going, feel free to share, and we'll have some time to get into more questions afterwards, as usual. One note about the last meditation last week, I guess it was last week, with the trauma healing and all that. I hope that's something that's been practiced ongoingly. I mean, like I've spoken to many of you and some other friends. I was having a conversation with a friend who I did some podcasts with on my YouTube channel, Ali Kanan. We sat down again and did another little podcast that'll be up soon, and he was speaking to me about one of the old articles I wrote a year ago about healing the father wound. And there was a specific meditation on how to engage the dynamics with relationship healing and trauma healing in regards to the father in particular. But of course, this is no different than what we've been doing in general over the past, whatever, 10 to 12 weeks, just taking more of a specific light. We can tend to come to this sense of understanding that our ability to focus our attention or focus the perceived idea of attention, because even when we explore the idea of attention, it actually isn't even there in the way we think it is. But we can see, at least in the practical light, that if we focus upon something, that focus begins to expand throughout the entirety of our perception, right? Meaning, anytime we focus upon anything in particular, it's not that the focus wasn't on it already. It's just that it didn't seem like it was dilated within the perception, right? So it's like if I'm looking at my hand, I can see the whole hand, but then if I zoom in, I'm only seeing the center of the palm, right? So looking at it this way, I'm still seeing the center of the palm from here, but when it's really close, now it's the entirety of the perception. And so this is actually a very helpful way of understanding the dynamic of how the exploration of neutralization works, or essentially like true authentic self-inquiry or investigation, right? So I think Vanessa's in here. We were having a session yesterday and talking about this, about naturally, when we look to a teaching to understand the nature of GodSource being all things, meaning everything is already perfect as it is. Everything's arising as this perfection. This perfection is only what it's ever been. All of life has only ever been this perfection arising. But why does it maybe not feel that way? Or why is there, other forms of challenge or perceptions that make us believe that there's something else? Well, that's simply because that we have kind of fallen into this realm of a perpetual kind of judgment or differentiation between what's good and what's bad, what's something we like or dislike, what is us and what is other, what is anything, any of these dualities. So when we are very much caught up in that perception of subject object and the differentiation between subject object, and thus the distance between subject and object, right? Which could be practically applied. An example, let's say, of, okay, we're looking at some past experience, past trauma, because it's manifesting now, and we're trying to figure out, well, okay, well, maybe we're trying to figure out, well, where is this past trauma? Where is it from? What is it? Why is it here? What happened? What did I do wrong? How do I deal with this? How do I heal it? Well, much of that conversation is a conversation that's dealing with distance, right? Because there's a sense of separation between what we perceive as us and this perceived, past circumstance that's caused this trauma, and then perpetuates itself in, what we look at as fears of the future. So it's this kind of distance that's created which creates the illusion of suffering. All suffering essentially is coming from this place, because true embodiment, it's not that we don't have a practical perception of past and future, because those are relatively valid things. It's just that there isn't an aspect of ourselves that's lost in past and future, right? Or like, in shamanism, we call this soul retrieval, because there's parts of ourselves that have been fragmented and essentially lost within time. So pulling those aspects of ourselves back into an embodied light, where we are in this, one moment, I guess you could say. I mean, it's not really a moment, but just this eternal now. And in this eternal now, there's this expansiveness of connection to the multidimensionality of our bodies, which is essentially endless, right? So we could also get caught up in that, where we're trying to figure out all these layers of our energy body and all that, and that can be another mind game. But in truth, just within this eternal now, we are already the entirety of creation. All of what we could ever be and all of which we have been is encompassed within this eternal now. So just like GodSource itself would also know this. GodSource itself knows themselves to be the eternal now, knowing themselves to be all possibilities, right? Within eternity, within infinity. Every possible form of creation is already what it is. Every, possible perception, and et cetera, et cetera. That's all there. It's all here. So coming to a balance within this, we are essentially pulling ourselves back, right? We're pulling the aspects of ourselves that are in past or future back to where we are existing here and now. And that process, when we're looking at it from a sense of our healing, is really a process of us being able to use this analogy where if we're perceiving the whole of our body, right? I'm just looking at my hand right now, but which I don't really need to use this example. I guess we could just perceive it right now, where even as we're sitting here, we can perceive the entirety of our body. So if we want to close the eyes and sink into that for a moment, but that could be done through like an instant intention, where we're instantly aware of the entirety of the body, right? All the cells. And often the less dense we are, the easier and the faster that becomes. And in that intention also, you could also scan the body, so moving from head to toe and slowly moving through every crevice. So we're feeling into, all the layers of sensation within the cells of the body. So it's like you're filling up a balloon with nothing, really. An emptiness, you're filling it up, because this awareness that you are is this empty spaciousness. Awareness doesn't actually exist in the way we think it does. It's really actually empty. So when we come to know this, there's a huge weight and freedom that's kind of lifted off the shoulder, because then we can just simply be this spaciousness. So the eyes don't even have to be closed to do this. We can just expand into this spaciousness, because this spaciousness is not contained just within the body and the limits of the skin, right? There is space within even the particles of the skin. So this spaciousness is like, it's like if you put your hand through a cloud, right? So if you were to move that awareness and attention through the arms, through the skin, and out into the space around the body, right? Like through the torso and then out through the back. The spaciousness is what you are. The sense of GodSource, this knowing of GodSource. It's all the spaciousness. So all the solidity we call our body is not actually even there in the way we think it is. So we can come to just rest within that. That spaciousness expands infinitely. So everything in this sense becomes translucent. Like even the solidity of the chair you're sitting on, or this laptop or this phone. If you were to zoom into it, you would see that there's actually, the majority of it is actually just spacious. So it's only the limits of the mind that make it out when we touch it, that our hands don't actually go through it. It doesn't feel translucent. Right? And that's a product of this dimension, but we're not gonna get too complex within it. We're just continuing to kind of, whether the eyes are closed or open, just kind of dance. It's almost like you're flying through this spaciousness. Everything that's perceived is this spaciousness. So with the eyes open, sometimes you can explore this with all the physical objects. It's like everything is translucent. Nothing in itself is actually solid, including your body. And whether the eyes are closed or open, also that could be the thoughts, right? Particular thoughts, some have more density, more of a weight than others. Maybe a feeling sense or a sensation in the body. So if we would simply come to see that all arising sensations within creation are simultaneously arising on their own volition, and all of them we are simultaneously aware of. It's just that within our subjective view, there may be particular aspects of creation, some of those in which seem maybe personal to you, that are more pronounced than others, let's say. So that could be a particular sensation in the body. That could be a particular thought, particular perception. It doesn't require anything of you really for that to be noticed, because whatever is there, whether it's a feeling of deep guilt and shame, whether it's a sore back, whether it's a thought about lunch or what have you, it's already noticed. The instant it arises, it's already there. There's no real requirement to be aware or to be mindful of it or anything, because it's already grasped your attention. And so, like a magnet, we're moving into those particular perception, sensations, topics. And we're moving into it in the same way with that translucent lens, where we're seeing that it's actually empty and we have to investigate it. So we can zoom into it, expand it. Of course, when you zoom in, it expands and it fills up the entire lens. And so we're repeating this investigation endlessly, where anything that holds any particular weight or is arising and filling up the lens, then we're going with that. We're investigating into that lens and we're seeing that in truth it is empty. We're not conceptualizing this, we're actually coming right into it to see what is actually there. Is the concept of this idea, this sensation, this feeling, is it as real as it's perceived to be? And what we'll tend to find is that as we become adept within this process, which is not really a process at all, it's just a revealing, we may come to see and recognize the organic nature, the organic structure of who we are. So as we perceive through these appearing sensations, thoughts, feelings, We see through the illusions and the synthetic nature of a lot of these, the conditioned nature of a lot of these. And in coming to this empty spaciousness, we find that this empty spaciousness is actually not empty at all. There is an inherent organic structure to this empty spaciousness. And this is what we could come to know as ourselves. We may feel the flows of energy that move through our body. We may feel the expanded nature of our template, our energetic template that goes far beyond just this body. And we come to find ourselves within all of this and as all of this. So we are intimately interwoven with these structures. And just as our physical body has a structure to it, although we can say it is empty, there's still an apparent structure to it that, as it's existing in its harmony, exists in its harmony. It exists naturally. The blood naturally pumps and flows. The nervous system is pulsing and bringing information throughout all the brains and all the nerves. I think the organs are functioning in harmony. The breath is naturally moving and expanding. The cells are breathing and living. There's an expansion to this energy. So even while we come to see this emptiness within any layer of what we can perceive, there may still be a remained structure, a structure that does not just magically disappear. However, in seeing through the illusions in which we perceive, which is often disease and fear, energetic buildup and miasmic buildup, strong, dense thought forms or perceptions, and just energy that's simply not flowing naturally and fluidly. This is what's uprooted. So it can be helpful to take a couple of breaths into the higher heart, quick breaths in through the nose, and then expanding that breath and letting that breath expand through these natural channels through the body, these natural organic channels through the body. Doesn't even really need to be visualized. You may be able to just naturally sense it and feel it. The natural structures of our lotus anatomy, our light body structure. And so through this process of us investigating all layers of density, we really have a never-ending process of coming into this, because at the core, we're not necessarily investigating particular subjects or areas of the body or sensations. We can really come to the direct investigation, which is directly investigating what we call ourselves or what we call creation. Because we may be able to sense a sense of self or a sense of this creation, like a collective sense of self or a collective sense of creation itself. Where is there an ability to investigate even that concept or idea or sense to see if it's really there in the way that it's perceived? Does the self actually exist? Does creation actually exist? And so can only be investigated by perceiving and moving into the core of where that is sensed. there may be a sense of self that we feel, like when we sense the sense of I am, the I amness, which often is in the center of the heart or chest region, but it may be in a different region that's not necessarily in the body. But there's an overall sense of self that we can investigate in the same way. Beyond, beyond all ideas and into this silence, what is left? So coming to this original point, naturally we come to see the vastness of the self. And we are left within a space of eternal co-creation, recognizing ourselves as eternal co-creators, working and creating with GodSource within all layers of self. So this is where it can look infinitely different for each of us in the nature of where this explores itself, how this naturally emanates through particular visions or insights, or naturally being drawn to particular intentions, because each of us have a particular purpose within our template structure, meaning there are particular regions of our energetic template that we may be more drawn to for the purpose of our healing or contribution or service to earth, others, collective worlds, etc. And from here, as we've listened to this silence, we may feel called to breathe through a pale silver diamond light that moves through every crevice of the anatomy that we can perceive here. This sometimes carries some pastel colors, filaments of rainbow current. And so it's like a flickering rainbow diamond light, pale silver, pale gold as well, that we can breathe through. And you breathe through into the layers of the skin, through the spaciousness of the skin, expanding in all directions within the layers of the light body, spirit body, plasma body structure. Simply coming to get to know this internal and external world that we exist in, this essentially flame or bubble, this diamond vehicle that expands quite vast in every direction. And it is our creative hologram. Everywhere we go and everything we interact with is happening within this hologram. And so as we come to know the vastness of it and the size of it, which is quite large, we see how much we truly do impact the collective, and how we engage our reality everywhere we go. Everything is happening within this hologram. So there's really nothing outside of our control. There's others, of course, that are going to interact within this hologram, but because we are, essentially at the driver's seat, and we are navigating the currents of energy from this driver's seat, well, then we're going to determine really what's going to exist in this hologram and not. We have the supreme free will to do so in alignment with what is righteous, what is a part of what is true. So through the breath, and through the attention, we can come to feel into the subtleties of the vastness of this template, this structure that we exist within. And then through that, the cognition of our moment-to-moment intention, moment-to-moment actions and words, everything carries a purpose. Everything carries impact, because everything is intimately interwoven. Every movement of our attention ripples and almost, if not instantly, reflects itself. So this is where we come to know a faster speed, if not an instant form of manifestation. Some of us may feel complete in this process, or in the eyes closed or open, so feel free to move them, but it doesn't really change much. We're going to continue with this theme, this focus. And so if we can come into the perception for a moment that everything is happening within this vehicle. So in Buddhism, we have the 3 layers of the vehicles, Hinayana, Mahayana, Vajrayana. These layers of the vehicle are layers of our body, our multidimensional body. So in Kailanic system, we go into many layers of this, right? We go into these external physical body, we go into light body structure, Rasha body structure, spirit body structure, luminary body structure, plasma body structure, each layer of these bodies is an aspect of the anatomy of God, which is what we are individual expressions of. So as angelic humans, we have access to remember or activate the remembrance of these layers of the body, which are vast structures, very large. If we look at just the basis of our body here in some of our auric fields, you can have an auric field that's 6 feet, 12 feet, 50 feet wide, but then you get into some of these bigger structures and you're looking at bodies that are as big as the planet, as big as the solar system, as big as the entire time matrix and beyond that. So these layers of our body, as we activate them, it's as if, if we just could perceive it like this. Okay, we're sitting in this room. Now, what if we have the perception that our anatomy is actually not just this body, it's the entire room? So we, as this body, this individualized body that's like separate from the walls, it's obviously like we're not interwoven with the walls, but if we just look at practically, this body is separate from the walls. But because the entirety of the room is actually our anatomy, then our body that's here is existing within ourselves. So we're existing within a greater version of ourselves, which is the room. So just like with our hands in this body, we can move and touch things. Well, say the room had a consciousness and the room could shift things and move things, like it could move the table around, or it could even move this body. I hope we're following here what I'm saying. So, okay, now we're this whole room. So everything that happens within this room is actually just the same as me moving my hand, because it's the same aspect. It's a part of the anatomy. So the ability to, let's say levitate or move an object or send a message telepathically to somebody else who's sitting in the room over there, which would be just another aspect of myself because they're in the room. So I'm the room. So anything in the room is also me. So me sending the message to the friend sitting over there, well, that's just happening within me already. Just like if I were to send a thought to my organ, right? To send some love, give some love to the organ, or to breathe through all the cells in the body. I'm consciously doing that because I can do that. I exist in this body. This whole body is me. So I have to take care of the entirety of me. So in the same way, when we're in the expanded version or the expanded perception of self, which is what it means to awaken, that's what it means for ascension or ascension, is we are we are expanding the perception into a greater viewpoint of self. So now, what if now we go beyond just the room? Now we're the entire house. So everything that happens within the house, just like everything, all the organs, all the things that happens in this body is me. And it's up to me, ultimately, to be the custodian, the guardian. It's not like I'm controlling all the things all the time. That's not necessary. I'm just making sure everything is in harmony so that it can work properly. So when we expand the perception to the whole house, now all the beings in the house, everything that happens in the house is happening within me. So this is the perception that we can carry when we are coming to an expansion of the awareness of all the layers of the anatomy. Today we're going straight for gold. We're going beyond all the layers and we're saying, what is the actual original light spark? What is the original absolute reality? Right? To see and investigate any perceptual layer and go beyond it, 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 to see what is the essential nature, what is the original source. Because if we know the original source, then just like now, we go straight to the viewpoint of the whole house instead of each room and all that, even though we still have to go through each room because you would clean up each room and all that. But if you're the perception of the whole house, then you can take care of that all simultaneously. This is what it means to walk the direct path, right? To not get caught up in all the shiny objects in the spiritual world. So to investigate the source, we come to know the source. It doesn't mean that just because we're the whole house, that rooms in the house don't exist. They're illusionary. No, they're illusionary to say that the one room is the full house. Like to say just this room is the full house. Well, that's not true. The full house is the full house. So this is what it means to understand the paradox between seeing all as illusionary, but yet loving all and appreciating all and bringing attention to all, because it's both equally true. So to come to know the absolute emptiness of, the absolute source, we come to know then all of creation, and this is the vastness of infinity, of eternity. There's no way of possibly conceiving how vast, this is. Like even just comprehending for a moment that our body is actually millions and millions and millions of kilometers wide. Like if we could come to grasp that for a moment, right? It's not even, the mind is usually not ready for that. So that's not really of our concern. We're not concerned with needing to grasp that. What we are, I guess, not concerned about, but focused on, is focusing on how can we get out of the way, essentially, so that these layers of self can be progressively uncovered and brought into realization. That's self-realization, self-actualization. We're actualizing the nature of who we actually are, which is the vastness of all. So this example I've given of the house, I mean, there's no limit. It's like the Russian eggs, egg, 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 So when we come to actually study this, through Kahlonic wisdom or various yogic or, Buddhist lineages, where we're coming to know the layers of the light body, the layers of the structure, the anatomy, not necessarily always in exact detail in all the ways that we think we need to understand things, but in a way where we actually viscerally feel these aspects of self as ourselves. Because believe me, it actually makes everything so much easier. Everything is so much easier because everything comes to you then, right? You become the master that all things naturally magnetize to. Because if you are all of creation, being able to send a telepathic thought to somebody to bring you a glass of water, or to, have a conversation, or just telling them something that you love them or something like this, or being able to move about your reality no matter where you go within the physical realm, and not have all the things that we see that are happening within the world, that in truth, for most of us, I feel, living this, it's really only when we go on social media that a lot of those things exist, right? These like dark topics or the world agendas and this and that. I mean, yeah, they're all things that are happening within the world and within the collective radial body. So yeah, sure, there's an element to the truth of that. But within our own bubble, these things are just not really apparent. I mean, I'm speaking for myself, and I'm giving a nice assumption that the majority of us here are experiencing similar, right? And then if we're not, really investigating, are these things truly in the immediate reality, or are they just being conjured up by the mind? Or every time we go on social media, we think these things are happening because it's like, well, yeah, they're happening, but where are they? You know what I mean? Like, I don't see any, I don't see a lot of this stuff happening in my own reality. It's really just a lot of concepts, right? So within each individual reality, it's going to be different. But so I can speak only to my own. But what I speak to is a principle that we all each can apply. Because again, if we're the whole room, if we're all the whole house, if we're the whole block, if we're the whole city, wherever we go, there we are. Wherever we go, that bubble's moving with us. So wherever we go, the influence of the organic structure of what we are is influencing everything within our reality. So whatever appears within that bubble is going to appear in alignment with that frequency, with alignment with that organic structure. So it's not necessarily that all of a sudden it's just, butterflies and rainbows, everything, everywhere. It's just that it's perceived in that way. Just like in the examples of, like miracle healing, for instance. I often reference like a Jesus story or something, healing the leper, like Jesus healing a leper or something like this. Whether it's true or not or whatever, it doesn't matter. The principles remain the same. The being that is able to elicit the transmission of the healing is perceiving not leprosy, but God, perfection. They're not perceiving leprosy in a sick, old, frail, poor looking human. On the relative level, sure, like we call the spade a spade, but the essence of what is felt is the perfection. So the magnetism works in a very simple way. The stronger magnet always will supersede the weaker magnet. So in a being who has not been able to see themselves in the same light, and thus is experiencing this disease or fear or leprosy in this case, the only thing that's actually required is the acceptance of seeing this perfection as this other being is. to be seen in the image of GodSource, which is essentially the nature of what it means to devote yourself to a teaching, to a teacher, to an energy, to a transmission, is the acceptance and willingness to see oneself as that. And that's where the stronger magnet, in this case, Jesus or whatever, and the weaker magnet, or the perceived weaker magnet, in this case, this person with leprosy, the stronger magnet essentially transmits that same frequency and then elevates this other being, which is what dissipates leprosy, because leprosy never really existed. It was only existing based on the crystallization, right? The density of the thought forms of that being that were literally holding that leprosy in place. Disease is only held by crystallization of thought forms. So it's holding that leprosy in place. When the frequency of another being comes in contact with that, and the being no longer wants to hold that frequency in place, then naturally it's like, that's what a miracle healing is. It can happen in an instant, right? And we likely have experienced it in these meditations in similar fashion, in small ways. We could have a shitty week, and all of a sudden you have all of a sudden it's gone. It's like washed away, like dirt on a windshield, like gone. Right. So when we come to know ourselves as this vast structure, which is essentially eternal, but we go through stages of that knowing and that remembrance, then the frequency range that we carry and the strength of that frequency range brings a stronger impact around amongst all those who are around us. So that doesn't even need to be looking like anything in particular. You could just sit around, and that effect is occurring. It's healing everything around you. It's like a magnet, just healing everything constantly. You don't have to do anything. You're just holding grid. And so when it's consciously directed in particular ways, then that can be more potent. But often we don't even really need to be constantly directing, because everything's going to come to us anyway. So that's why naturally we become more silent in this space, right? More silent, more receptive, right? Because you're a magnet. Yeah. So that was a long-winded explanation, but I felt very clear. So hopefully it was clear to you guys. So reflections are welcomed if there's any questions or anything on that. The reason why I brought it up today is because it's just so simple. Like it's well, it is and it isn't. I mean, it's very complex work we're talking about. These are very complex subjects, especially, I'm just giving you the general overview. It's up to you to guys to like message me to get into KS workshops or access them on your own time, or do your own meditation, so you can start to explore these layers of self, so you can see that you're existing within this diamond light body structure, and everywhere you go everything is happening within that. So everywhere you go, it's this portal of GodSource. There's nothing else but that. It doesn't matter where you are in the world or what's happening in the world, or none of that matters. None of that matters. None of it has any effect on you, right? And we still be humble, because there's layers of that we may not be aware of yet, or there's layers of that we may be being affected in ways that are not so pleasant, in realities that we're not yet aware of. But at least in the immediate reality, we can deal with the things that we're coming across, and see it all as happening as ourselves. It's all us everywhere we go. It's us. Check the comments here. Diamond, yeah. What can one do in their everyday life to practice this? Well, what does it mean to live like a monk in a modern world? Because it's not one or the other. It's not like we live our modern day life or we live as a monk. It's both. The structure of living as a monk, or the structure as living in an ashram, the structure of living in a spiritual community, or structure of living as an angelic human in an ancient culture, is recognizing that every aspect of one's day is a practice of service and self-realization and knowing of GodSource. Everything is that. There's nothing that is not that. There's no moment in the day that is not that process, right? So until it feels that way, then maybe there's practices, maybe there's engaged things, because whether it's religious structure, spiritual structure, ancient culture, had the same blueprint. It's just it was distorted in different ways. But what was the blueprint? The blueprint was a set of principles and ways of how to deal with other people, how to engage other people in a loving and natural way, how to hold oneself, right? What are the principles of governing oneself? And if you don't know this, then it's a studying of those. It's a coming into those. It's a practicing of those, right? There's an aspect of bodily movement, right? Taking care of the body, recognizing that it's very simple, but there's all the ways in which we can take care of the body. There's all the ways in which we can naturally govern and understand the nature of how we are breathing and expanding the breath and connecting the breath to all the elementals, right? All the layers of the elemental command. These are all layers of ourselves that we have to intimately get to know, right? That's why we go into nature and we explore nature and we play in nature and etc. Then of course it evolves into the voice. The voice is the highest form of expression, whether it's music, whether it's speaking, whether it's connecting, whether it's writing, whether it's other forms of art or acting to create something in the world that brings service. There is a creative force through the voice. That's why mantras, spiritual song, music has always been a fundamental aspect of all spiritual tradition, right? From all of this, from all of these layers, we come to a balance within the body that we can concentrate and focus. Because without concentration and focus, the realm of knowing the perfection of all is impossible, right? So from these places where our body feels balanced, our mind feels balanced, our emotions feel balanced, we feel like we're in service, we feel our needs are met, there's focus that can come now. And so through focus, we can focus upon the highest devotion, right? Of knowing and realizing the nature of truth, which is infinite, it's eternal quest. But that can happen in many ways, but often it can happen in meditation, but it can happen through, just worldly endeavors that we're engaging in a meditative way as well, right? But it's giving us the access point to the doorway of these higher realms of consciousness, the higher sensory perceptions, the higher abilities, which again have to be engaged actively, right? They are going to be actively engaged, but whether they come spontaneously or whether they're done as a practice, it's one and the same. I don't see a difference between the two, right? Someone could say, well, we can just live our life and have no practices. Well, that's true, but everything's a practice anyways. Brushing your teeth is a practice. So everything's a practice. So we're not to differentiate between living a spiritual life and living a normal life. Everything is a product of living the divine nature, living your divine nature and communing within yourself. But each of us, I think, are at a level of maturity on this path where it's not necessarily such a rudimentary, like at 8 o'clock we're doing this, 9 o'clock we're doing this, then we do this exact technique and this. There's elements to that can be very helpful. But then there's also an intuitive nature where everything becomes a practice. The whole day, every aspect of creation, because if there isn't necessarily an other, right? Meaning there's life and then there's you. No, everything is life. It's all life. It's all happening. So synchronicity, for instance, is not happening to you. It's a happening of you. You're giving life to these synchronicities and these movements and these spontaneous connections with people. So everything becomes this ongoing practice. There's no end to it, right? So of course I could give an endless list of this, which I would recommend. All the meditations we've been doing. I'd recommend getting into chaotic science, workshops and actually studying the mechanics of the anatomy. I'd recommend, just having something within your life that you feel like you can devote your time and your energy to in regards to being of service to people each day. That could be really simple, like cooking someone a meal, I don't know, driving your grandma somewhere, or, building a project. I don't know. There's endless amounts of things. Right. But it's recognizing that in the old times, in the ancient cultures, all of life was sacred. All of life was seen as sacred, and all of life was a devotion to the absolute nature, the source of all. Everything was that, because everything was seen intimately interwoven with that. So it wasn't like compartmentalized life, right? Although we are compartmentalizing maybe our time and focusing on things in practical measure, right? But like the kids are saying these days, it's all the things. It's all the things. What about when you come across people who do not realize this very truth within them? and almost everything you say triggers them. They are part of oneself, but how do you create a harmonic atmosphere in those situations? Well, it, it's more about a process of listening than it is about something sharing. Who cares what you know about spirituality or this or that, or about COVID, or about what's happening here, or about this or that? What does that matter to somebody who's not interested in that? It's like if someone came to you, started talking about knitting, and you didn't ask for them to talk about knitting, and they're telling you everything about knitting, and you're like, well, thanks. So think about that. Think about it in the relationship dynamics. Like, where is this person actually at? We have to meet people where they're at, right? So we have to truly listen to what's before us, and listen to what they're at, and listening isn't just listening in the ears. Listening is in the energy. Listening is feeling, you know, that just because this person doesn't know shit about vaccines or this or that, or about meditating or this, doesn't mean they don't desire to know these things, or to maybe explore these things, but just in a completely different way. Maybe going for a walk is a meditation for them, right? Maybe talking about what they love, the sports that they love, is actually more healing than talking about COVID this, COVID that, or whatever we're talking about with people. You know what I mean? So peace is more important, because what are we after? We're after peace and joy. We're not after that. We're realizing that. So if that's the reality of what it is that's being sought out through any sort of seeking, or any sort of conscious engagement in what we're speaking about here, well, then that is to be practiced, right? So what's happening on the surface in terms of words and the topics of conversation, and whether we're doing spiritual things with this person or not, none of that matters at all. What matters is taking all of the stuff that you've learned within that and applying it within the individual circumstances that you come across, like a true master. Because mastery is not parroting what you just learned and then parroting to somebody else. Mastery is taking what you've learned and translating it into something that could literally have nothing to do with what you just learned, but it will still carry the same energy, which is often why you could just be silent. What a great gift to 99% of the people in the world, to just be around them and be silent. When have they ever come across somebody who could just be that silent? I experience this all the time. I mean, obviously I come here and I speak for 2 hours, right? But at the same way, even though I'm speaking for 2 hours, we all still experience silence this whole time. I could speak and not give you a moment of silence this whole 2 hours, and we'd still feel the silence, because it's an energy. But yet, in the same token, when I'm around people who are not in this wavelength, like for instance, not interested in these topics, or not asking for things, not asking questions or whatever, then I'm silent. I don't say a word, or I talk about whatever they want to talk about, right? And then otherwise, there's just silence. And then over time, people assimilate. Remember that magnet example we went into, right? They assimilate to that energy field. Important. So I hope that makes sense. On practicing seeing perfection in density one, had someone ask me today about what to do, what do they do as someone who has hurt people their whole life and want to change. I said not to judge themselves too harsh, and everything changes, to let themselves grow, can't change past actions. Also said to give themselves empathy for probably living in survival. Yeah, those are all great things. Yeah. I mean, everything comes down to actions, right? So if when the change wants to occur, we often find knowledge that will support in the change, but that knowledge is to support in the change, if you get what I mean, right? It's supporting in the actions that we're going to take now from this place. So finding the knowledge, or you being there to share this with them or whatever, that's a very supportive step. Then it's always up to them. It's always up to us. It's always up to us being able to carry those actions forth, day in, day out, moment to moment. There's no letting up. Like there's no time moment when you just you're just kind of like, oh, it's good. I mean, those are the moments that we cycle back, right? Because we're dealing with momentum of patterns and habits that can be very strong. So it takes such a diligent effort, right? Such a diligent effort. I was reflecting on this the other day. I was like, someone like some people who come and I want to change this and want to change that, and then there's like a deep impatience. It's like they think like they could just pay their way, buy a program from me or someone else, or you know I don't know, like do these different things to kind of get there, like just so quickly. It's like, yeah, sure, but understand, like if you want to get there quickly, there's a lot of trade-off that's going to have to be done. So if you want to go there at a slower pace, it's just going to take longer. If you want to go at a really slow pace, it's going to take much longer. But there's no real shortcut. The example I was reflecting on, it's like if you wanted to run 5 kilometers and say you're like on the route, but then you take a shortcut, but your goal was 5 kilometers. So then you take a shortcut and then you take another shortcut and then you get back to the original point, whatever, or the end. And it was actually only like 4 kilometers or 3 kilometers. And then you're like, well, my goal was 5 kilometers. So I basically got to go do it again or do more, like that's kind of how I view often our path. You could run the 5 kilometers faster, but you still got to run the 5 kilometers. So in the light of awakening, in the light of coming into these like this path, there is no shortcut. There's teachings that are just more efficient than others, but they will require more discipline, more diligence, more devotion, more like, I guess, sacrifice, you could say, on some level, right? um so yeah, so I mean, um yeah, but I like that example. It's a really accurate one. Like, oh, I want to run 5 kilometers, but I only ran 3 now. So, but now I got to run 2 because I took shortcuts. So it also translates into like enjoy the ride. Enjoy the journey, enjoy the landscape, enjoy what's happening, enjoy all the pieces of the puzzle, because it's an eternal quest anyway. So where are you going? Like where are you really headed to? I understand we often want to escape our suffering and pain, but often pain is actually where we found a lot of great lessons. Not self-inflicted pain, even though that can as well, but pain that just naturally comes, like growing pains or things like this. But surely as we harmonize and balance, pain becomes just less and less. It's just not there, or more so we don't perceive the concept of pain in the same way. Like jumping in a cold river. Me and a bunch of friends were up there the other day, and it was surely hella cold. But when you breathe and you meditate and you empty the mind, you can be in that cold for quite a while, and it actually invigorates you, and then you have energy for the rest of the day. So I mean, where's the pain? What are we really talking about when we talk about pain? Barbara's asking about attention, the insights about attention. It's the same thing. Attention itself is still kind of a concept. What are Like, if we really investigate the now, the eternal now, or whatever's just here, we're not really experiencing attention upon something. We're experiencing what is. We're intimately interwoven with what is. So it kind of goes back to the idea of kind of like the synchronicity idea I spoke about often, where synchronicity isn't really happening to us. It's just happening. We notice synchronicity because we're becoming intimately interwoven with all of life. So we're not seeing this happening as separate. It's the mind that comes in and says, oh, there's this synchronicity that's come to me. But no, in reality, it's actually just you seeing yourself. And now, oh, you see yourself, and then you see yourself, and then you see yourself. And then as you keep seeing yourself, you only really want to be with yourself. So you're just constantly seeing yourself everywhere. And then that's where synchronicity is everywhere, because if you saw yourself on the right and then you look to the left and then you see yourself there, well, you're like, well, that would be an example of like the number sequence or something like this. You see the number sequence, like, oh, 444, you're like, oh, yeah, like I saw myself. But in reality, you just saw yourself by looking out the window on the right, and you just saw yourself by looking forward, and you just saw yourself by talking to your friend. You've been everywhere. So the puzzle starts to piece together, where you see that you're intimately there as all that's happening and arising. You can't escape it. You've never been able to escape it. That's why you've always come back to who and what you are. It's only ever always been that. It's just we've been convinced through all these layers of distortion and programming that pull the attention and give the, and start to, work at the layers of the energy body and all that, and it starts to like fragment, like cut it up like a knife, literally. It's like knives stuck in the energy body, like in all these different ways. So like the healing is like pulling those out and healing that and letting that kind of like reconnect, right? Because that's what it means. I mean, when we're coming to like reconnect with the perception of a higher light body, we're basically like reconnecting those layers of perception, because the perception of our higher light body is already there, and the perception of our density one self here is already there. It's just that the connection between the two has been sliced. It's literally been slivered. So yeah. So what is perceived as the movement of focus, the sensation, raw perspective of focus? Well, it's simply what is arising as this right now, and it's perpetually arising as this. It's perpetually arising as this. So we don't have to deny the feeling sense of attention, but what we're denying is the idea that we're perceiving separate things. If we can start to perceive that everything that's arising is actually what we are, it's intimately interwoven with this idea of perception or attention, then that helps us actually be with things for the duration that's required, right? Because we could say that, like, for instance, with trauma or emotional stagnation, we didn't fully feel or be with what was arising, and we kind of skipped steps, like we moved on because it was, like, say, too painful. So that's created the fragmented rift, and that requires us to go back to it. So if we are just seeing that, okay, sure, we have focus, we have attention, we can move this, but if, like, think about this way. If you're in a forest and there's birds all around you, and you're in this place of a deeply identified with this sense of attention and kind of controlling reality, you're like, okay, I want to listen to birds. So you're kind of like consciously like looking for the birds, you're trying to hear them, like you're trying to bring your attention, like, where's the birds, where are the birds? But what you could also do is just listen, like just sink into the receptivity, the listening of what's happening in the forest. And it's quite likely you'll listen and hear a lot more birds. How funny is that, right? It's basically the same thing. There isn't actually much difference, but there's actually a vast difference. So if we perceive in this way, we're in that perpetual listening and receptivity to what is actually arising, and if we have no judgments or ideas about, like, whether our attention should be placed on it or not, or this, because it's arising, so it's right there. The attention is already there. Like, again, when we look at the whole hand, just because I'm not focused in on, like, this one finger doesn't mean my attention is not on the finger. So if we pull the hand away and our attention is vastly everywhere, our attention is with everything, then whatever is meant for us, essentially, whatever is like a part of the flow of the river, like we could put it that way, I guess. Well, that's where the attention is going to go, if we want to call it that. But if we wash away the idea of attention, we're just seeing things as arising, and then we're there with it. Oh, it's arising as me, and I'm with it, and I'm in this individual body interacting with that arising, or with my attention, I'm interacting with it. But in truth, it's the same if someone came and slapped me in the face. Like, I'm not controlling the reaction of my head going this way. It's just happening. That's just all happened by a natural reaction, by a natural response. Like, that the universe is perfect in that sense. Yeah, so there's no one directing it. Well, you are all of it. So in some level, I guess, yes. And then in the way that we kind of generally identify with ourselves as, not necessarily, right? But you don't even have to get too caught up in that idea of, like, is there a me? Is there not a me? Is there a person? Is there not a person? Because when you realize the nature of this, of course there's still this individual whatever, but it's kind of like, again, the difference between belief and knowing is kind of where you get to this place where it's like, yeah, of course, there's nothing, there's no more, it's like, yeah, I have hands. Do you want to talk about it, or do we have to like have a big discussion about the fact I have hands? Or no, it's just, that's what it is. That's what it is. That's what the teachings of those who say there's no self, there's no person, there's no individual, there's nobody there doing anything, that's what they mean. But a lot of them don't even know actually what they're saying, because they're so caught up in the beliefs of those ideas, right? So it becomes the lens in which they see everything through, because that's still their practice. They're still practicing that. They haven't come to know it yet, which is fine. But that can get confusing, of course. Of course it can. Like, oh, I'm eating. Oh, I shouldn't say I'm eating because I'm not here. I don't exist. So eating is just happening, which can be helpful. I guess, that can be a practice where you're not like identifying everything. Not, I mean, like if we just come back to the most basic, like kind of teaching, like from our parents or something, like don't take things personally. It's actually very, very helpful. Don't take all these things personally. Of course, yeah. Because if everything is being taken personally, then everything is seen as separate, because you're always judging whether something is useful to you or not. When everything's taken personally, is this useful to me or not? Is this person useful to me or not? Is this teaching useful to me or not? Is this moment, geography, opportunity, job situation, is it useful to me or not? It's all about that. But if you're not existing in that same way, where when we say I don't exist, it means I have no real desire. I don't need any of these things. None of these things are going to, like, I'm not using things because it's not separate from me. So if something comes into my experience, it means that there is a co-creative opportunity, but I'm not here to use it. You see the difference? So that's a real practical way to explore. Yeah, really nice. Yeah, we're on a roll today. I was going to use that. I was actually in that post I made yesterday about like how to navigate spiritual teachings. One of the slides was going to be how we engage teachings is how we engage all our relationships, and often the whole using thing is very much there. We judge the relationship based on what its usefulness is to our life experience. So if someone comes, we're judging based on on that, and same with like teachings and stuff. But if we're open and willing, it doesn't mean we've negated discernment, but we're willing and humble to receive whatever's there and whoever's there, whatever's arising, and are willing to engage it. Because again, if we've been emptied out, then there's nothing they can take from us. There's nothing they can really get. It's all just a co-creative opportunity. You're creating a third entity, which is the experience. That's the service. That's what it means to be a creator. You're creating something out of nothing. But if you still need all these things, then you're going to take some of that for you. So you're not really actually creating, and there isn't real value being brought. It's still like, what can I get out of it? What I need I need to get some of this, and then I'll give what's remaining. Boy, that's like potent, man. Juicy. There you go, Layla. You got it. On relationships, the higher realms exist in harmony and peace. Yeah, it's only here we experience. Well, there's many places in co-creation that have fallen in this way, but yeah, I mean, co-creation is very vast. But within eternal co-creation, which is outside of this time matrix, yeah, I mean, it's the heavenly realms. It's harmony, great harmony, and harmony can be here too. I mean, we can't forget that. It's just, yeah, we're dealing with a lot of things as well, and that's okay. We can navigate it, because the aspects of ourselves are already in these places. We opted to come here, so the aspects of ourselves in eternal co-creation or in the heavenly realms, we're already there. There's already aspects of ourselves there. So commune with yourself there, communicate with yourself there. You don't even need to know any of that. Just communicate with yourself that's in any other place in the universe, and it will be revealed to you in some way, even if it's just through a feeling sense or through the transmission of yourself back here, right? What better way to receive that energy than to go straight to yourself. So yeah, this is great. I'm like I'm like so dumbfounded every week, really. Um, how how just, yeah, like I don't know what to say. These sessions just keep getting better every time. Whatever the topics we're talking about, or what you guys are experiencing, or I mean what I'm experiencing. I mean, I experience this just as much as you guys, so it's, you know, it's all of us. But I mean, I have like 400 or 500 people viewing my stories every day, or on peak days, and then we have these like small intimate groups. People need to wake up and come and sit. That's why I commend all of you sitting, just sitting, not even needing to practice as meditations, but just listening, and putting it into practice in your own life, because, you know, so it can be this simple. Really, it can be this simple if there's a willingness to practice. Remember, simplicity comes through effort. It's not like it's just simple. You know what I mean? It's actually extremely complex, but it's simple for those who put the work in. Because think about this way: every time that you've engaged a complex body of work and you were like confused, all that confusion vanished the moment you started actually engaging some of the work, right? Like sitting down and actually like doing one of the practices, or starting to apply it in your life in some way, or starting on a new regimen where you're like focused on it and journaling about it, or whatever it looks like. But it's when there's actual application that all of a sudden all the complexity completely vanishes, because simplicity emerges through action, through involvement in everything that we're speaking about here, and everything that's spoken about in every other place that's, you know, sharing similar topics, right? So yeah, I mean, it's just it's nice to have you guys here, and just to see that, because that's really what's going to make the difference in what we're dealing with on a vast scale. Everyone wants the, you know, the latest news on the conspiracy shit, or the latest distorted false light fucking reveal of some other thing. I don't know, like these are like all the hot topics, you know. But really, where it's at is when we're just getting into the same stuff. I mean, it's not like we do anything different every week. Or with you guys, I mean, I'm sure you're not really changing practices that often. You're doing the same stuff that's working, and it's consistently working, or you're moving to something and then you're engaging it for a while. It doesn't, you know, it's just funny. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's any other questions, topics, comments. This is as Layla said, juicy, 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 juicy. And it's as nourishing as juice, that's for sure. Yeah, thank you, Layla. Layla. How's Mexico? You guys look like you're having some fun, some good times. Oh, I have something I want to close with, actually. So before you guys go, amazing. Oh, nice. All right. It's mainly because I want to just hear it again. I've been listening to it like I don't know, 10 times yesterday. But I posted it in my Telegram, which was this song by this guy that I didn't know he was on American Idol, but everyone was messaging me saying, "Oh yeah, he was runner up or something American Idol," which, you know, obvious why. And yeah, so I had stumbled on this video a while ago on Instagram, and I remember it was just like so profound. And then yesterday I stumbled on it again, and actually sat with it a bit and like watched him. And I've been, you know, over the years I've gotten a lot better at being able to tune with to like kind of, you know, people's energy. You know, I don't really do readings and stuff that much for people, but I often can kind of tell, you know, who's who or what's what in some way. And the fog is perpetually clearing. Anyways, I had the perception that he was like this like mantra guru in past lives or something like this, you know. And you could tell actually in this video where like everyone's sitting around him, and I just, you can feel it. And yeah, his energy has a lot of healing encryption in it, and he's carrying a lot of power. So, you know, when you heal, it's not anything for me. It's just fascinating stuff. You don't have to consciously know the music tells the tale, right? But it's just cool. I mean, it's been cool for me to tune in and feel the encryptions of different music, and sometimes who these individuals may be, or what energy they're carrying, even though I don't always consciously like know exactly, but you can kind of start to make it out. But with this guy Willie, I was really able to make it out. So um so yeah, I want to play this, and then I mean, you guys can go whenever you want, but I think we're gonna end with this. Let me play this song.
Shine bright like a diamond. Shine bright like a diamond. Shine bright in the beautiful sea. I choose to be happy. You and I, we're like diamonds in the sky. You're a shooting star, I see a vision of ecstasy. When you hold me, I'm alive. We're like diamonds in the sky. I knew that we become one right away. One right away. At first sight, I felt the energy of sun rays. I saw the light inside your eyes.
Tonight, you and I, we're beautiful like diamonds in the sky. Eye to eye, so alive. We're beautiful like diamonds in the sky. Shine bright like a diamond. Shine bright like a diamond. Shine bright like a diamond. Beautiful like diamonds in the sky. Shine bright like a diamond. Shine bright like a diamond. Shine bright like a diamond. Beautiful like diamonds in the sky.
First we give them up as we moonshine in light. And the one will never die. We're like diamonds in the sky. You're a shooting star, I see a vision of ecstasy. When you hold me, I'm alive. We're like diamonds in the sky. At first sight, I felt the energy of sun rays. I saw the light inside your eyes.
We're beautiful like diamonds in the sky. So alive. Beautiful like diamonds in the sky. Shine bright like a diamond. Shine bright like a diamond. Shine bright like a diamond. Beautiful like diamonds in the sky. Shine bright like a diamond. Shine bright like a diamond. Shine bright like a diamond. Beautiful like diamonds in the sky.
Boom.
Oh, all right. Well, that was nice. I mean, yeah, pretty obvious. Crying and laughing at the same time. Yeah, there you go. See, yeah, you can yeah, I mean, we all know the power of music. It's not much to say, but surely, yeah, yeah, he's holding a very strong encryption, so that was nice, and we thank him for that. All the things, yes. Yeah, I listened to that a couple times, quite a few times yesterday. He has some other stuff, but that video in particular I found held the strongest encryption compared to even like stuff on American Idol, whatever. So yeah, really cool. Now, yeah, I'll share the link. Actually, I shared it on a Telegram, but I'll just share it here because I have it. It's on Telegram. Yeah, well, that to me held the encryption of the original angelic choirs, actually. You know, I mean, you feel that on in some different realms, like that's why often like the Gregorian chants can carry that too. Which I'm, you know, if you guys haven't listened to on my YouTube, I have a full like 1 hour playlist of Gregorian chants that I mixed, but you know, you can find it on Spotify as well. And and yeah, I mean, so much to say. It's just like really potent. Um, Well, since you guys are around, I want to watch this again too. So if you want to watch this with me, then you can. But if not, I'm gonna share it elsewhere. But I would share this with my friend from my friend last night, where she is quite an adept friend of mine, pretty to herself. But yeah, I've often gone to her for just my own conversations and mentorship. So she shared this with me, and this was holding kind of a remembrance of our ability to fly and levitate. And yeah, this one's really nice. So let's take a look at this. Pretty cool. Oh, oops. Yeah, nice little videos there. So that's it for me, I feel. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, night, evening, etc. week. And at the moment, we will likely reconvene next Wednesday. So yeah, keep love. This recording will be up at some point, and we'll chat soon. See ya.